Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the official Trackmania channel for round 4 of the Trackmania Elite Cup for 2026. I'm Thomas Mangos, aka GGeek, alongside the one and only Kylo Dvis, aka Luckersturbo. Thank you very much for joining us. We're already past the halfway mark. 3 down, 2 to go starting this week. And Kai, I feel like this is going to be somewhat different from what we've seen, especially last week.
Yeah, we go to Brazil, everybody, and this is definitely a track that is quite unique, to say the least. But yeah, we are more than halfway through, only 2 more rounds. We have Greece and, of course, Brazil coming up now, but Greece will be next week. But I'm very much looking forward to it, actually, here, Geek, of how things will do. But maybe brief thoughts about last week. Qualifier gap, 0.466. Definitely a very, very close gap. That's almost nothing. Do you think it will be the same today?
I reckon it might be a little bit wider than what we've seen in the USA. USA was a bit specific map. It was very much pace conducive in a sense because there wasn't all that much happening for what some of the big players were compared to what's in France and China was happening, for instance. I know my phrasing might be a little bit off, but you know what I mean there. I feel like we're going back to the sort of tracks that we've seen a little bit earlier on in the season with China and France in maybe a bit more of a smoother fashion, but I'll let you be the judge of that. But before that, in case you weren't with us last week, well, you've missed a ton, and Kai's going to take us through the early part of last week's action, and it started off on a banger, really.
Yeah, I mean, the very first round was already very close here, as we can see it's tween face elimination, but then had a great identity here to work it out with against Megorian, and was able to just get it in the end because Megorian was slightly unlucky there, so he was in.
Yeah, and now we move a few rounds later to another knockout that was with big championship implications with Binks in P55. It kind of caught us off guard, actually. We didn't exactly catch it, but thanks to semifying, we can actually see what happened there, as you can see here with the highlight of the car. What happened was he went a bit far inside and clipped with the inside of the wheels on the edge of the plastic road. Tried to save it, but then the back end of the car started to come away from him. And as he came crashing on the inside wall, or the inside pillar of the finish, he actually was praying for in order to actually clip the finish trigger with the right front. Unfortunately for him, the angle was a bit too high to be able to make that trigger happen, so he was actually forced to respawn, thus dropping him down to P55, allowing Josh to make it through and survive another round. Well, there were a few heartbreaks here in the finish, but an area that really took no prisoners was the dirt flick, Kai, and no matter the skill level, it did not discriminate.
Yeah, the dirt flick was quite something. We were thinking that the quarter pipe would be the biggest issue here, but we can see 4 people crashing on the exits there. No one having to respawn, which is also quite uncertain to see. But a lot of mistakes have happened there. Then also poor speed from Evon in that sector and also Paul. So they fell behind. And, well, it was their last round, but not for Paul. For Jan it was, because he has made a mistake there as well, and then found himself on P51. Exactly, had to respawn.
And then you can see Nico, there is the car. And this is one of the things that happened there. Nico, on his first event for FUT Esport, got knocked out early because he had a bit too much of an angle, I'm guessing, during the dirt flick, and ended up losing the grip midway through the slide. And with the speed that had already been accumulated, he was sent over to the other side, and underneath that little ridge that you see there, that little metal bar, essentially, and that would knock Nico down in P48. Not the outcome that the Frenchman was looking for.
Definitely. I mean, we have seen the others maybe getting a bit lucky there, but Nico sliding out. But maybe we can go a bit more in depth into that, because Mura's mistake here kind of encapsulates that a bit better, because you can see here, Mura has slid out. Why does this happen? It happens because his car was angled way too much, so his car couldn't really get grip. It's like if you land in a bug slide, maybe the one or another is familiar with that, and your car is in too much of an angle where your car just slides off. It doesn't accumulate grip. And that's the problem here for Mura as well. And boom, he slides out. Quite kind of similar mistake to Nico there. And Mura got eliminated on 42nd position alongside a fan favorite by the name of Birdie, who had to respawn in the ending as well. So Mura doesn't make the three-peat happening, but still, of course, still leader in the total ranking. And I think this will not change.
Yeah, this will not change. And then as the rounds went on, you can see the gaps have gotten a lot closer. 36 hundredths of a second between first and 22nd, just at this point of the round. But the reason why we're showing you round 22 here is because of a knockout that will happen right there. Let's pause for a moment. You can see there the car of Carl Jr. He actually caught a little bit of airtime halfway through that final corner and let it sideways on the plastic with a little bit of speed to boot. So his car ended up getting sent over the girders of the support beams, and by the time he reached that point with the left rear hanging out in the void, essentially, the damage is almost already done. And then you're going to be seeing him clipping the girders, and that will knock the Canadian out in 24th. Zera would go ahead of Carl Jr. as you saw, but by just a few hundredths of a second, the Frenchman will also go out, and that was a bit of an earlier exit than planned for Carl Jr. And to quickly put the period on Muta's exit in P40, in P42 or 44, I think it was, that was a big opportunity for some players to make big moves in the points.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we can also see it in the next clip, how incredibly close that level was here. Pack fell behind from the start, Geek, and just look how close this round was. Pack really just trying to survive in this round, but he cannot find an entry point into this round up until the identity.
Until the identity, yeah, that's where he really started to make his comeback. The man from Vitality looking to make a solid appearance after two dismal outings in China and France. In USA, it wasn't meant to be. Look at the gap, 9 milliseconds. That's all that separated Pack from survival, and Wosal was the one to actually get the top 8 there with a very, very close identity. And speaking of identity, what do you describe what's coming up in just 1 second, Kai? This.
Yeah, this is just mesmerizing. You can see the level here. Another incredibly close round where Melio is getting eliminated. Important to get into that top 7 position because the point jump is from 100 to 200 points from 8th to 7th. And then also here we see in the top 4 the players who move into the top 4, with Massa making that mistake. All were in dire need of points. They're all like in the top 20s to top 30s. So it just was beautiful for them, also due to that early mistake from Muda, who went out early. Bren, Scrappy, Wolfson, and Otak all getting a lot of points in this third Elite Cup step.
Yeah, but for Otak, which you see on screen, it could have been a lot different. We circle back to round 30 from the perspective of Veria and watch closely in the distance as we go into the first helper. There is Otak's car right there, and you see he goes way further inside on the helper than the rest of the field. But the problem is he went too far inside, and thus the right side wheels were kind of hanging into the void. And as we play the rest of the clip, you'll see he clobbers the inside heavily. He is very lucky to get away with that. And then watch this second clip on the second helper, which puts him into a moonshot of a wheel stand. His ghost somewhat disappears, but you get the idea. He lost a lot of speed because of that encounter with the girders. Area goes through, and look at how close he was to elimination. Jadon smelling the opportunity, trying to go for a late move in the final corner, but it wasn't meant to be for the Englishman from Team Shift, who would get knocked out. Otak would survive and eventually finish in the top 3. As you will see here in that round, he tried to go for the move on Wosal, but goes a bit too far inside on the last corner, and thus allowed the man from Genji to move through into P2, sending up an all-French brawl between Bren and Wosal. And Kai, this was something that both players were trying to make the most opportunities there, and that gave us a final round which started off well, but then got somewhat abruptly ended.
Yeah, it got abruptly ended indeed, because I said at the cast before the match started that we didn't have a crash in a grand final already, so one could say it's a caster curse, but of course that is overdue to happen because it's a high pressure situation, right? Both players are just absolutely pushing it, and if the number then goes to 2, well, you somewhat have to push it here. And look at that quarter pipe jump here from Wosal coming back. Good approach there in this sector as well, but it was still everything to play for up until this part where Bren crashes with his back right tire the exit out of the first dirt turn.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I had to highlight this not only because of the ghost, but you can see the gap. It's not that much. It's a very slight wall brush, not a crash, just a wall brush. But it was just enough to trigger the dreaded acceleration penalty. And just look at this over the next couple of frames as we are going to be playing that back. Look at the speed difference already. 50 kilometers lost just on the spot there for Bren, which pretty much opened the gap, which became unassailable. Despite some hard flutters from Wosal, he was very much in management mode, trying to bring the car home, and bring it home he did to claim his first Elite Cup win of the season and claim GGeek's first ever win in Trackmania outright. So already a milestone being put in the sand there, a line in the sand, and the milestone is, I'm guessing the statue will be erected somewhere in the Trackmania world for Genji Wosal with the performance that he actually had. And that brings us to the overall standings after round number 3, and Kai, we're going to be starting off in the ENC rankings because there has been a little bit of shuffling about as well.
Yeah, definitely. As you can see here, we see Muda still in the lead, of course, but Wosal jumping all the way to 2nd position, overtaking Granadi, then being still on 4th position. Naiko not looking too bad on 5th, as well as Massa, and then Bren with his 2nd position on 7th place. Epos also somewhat in there and can definitely probably even get 2nd place after today if he performs like that. But also what I wanted to say, Geek, is like this knockout format somewhat combines a little bit of luck with consistency and skill.
Yeah, indeed. You do have to have a little bit of lady luck on your side in that particular instance. Over on the ENC standings, well, the top 3 nations are still well and firmly locked in. Wosal taking over the role of flag bearer for France. Epos moves into the top 4, swapping places with Canada. Scrappy's great performance as well, who finished in P4, moves Belgium up to 6th in the standings, ahead of Hungary and Switzerland. Elkon still is the flag bearer for Czechia with 9th place. Razi moves up to 10th. Roadtaker 11th for Poland. 12th place for Charles in Colombia. Spammy taking over the mantle to lead the charge for the Netherlands in P13. Nitek in P14 for Russia, and 2 new nations on the leaderboard. Jan, the Slovenian driver, in P15, and P16 for J-Swag as well, who had a very solid outside dirt line that worked most of the time before it came back to bite him in the later rounds. Here is how the standings look like in the top 32 of the Elite Cup. You can see also Otak with an appreciable game moving up to 9th place as a result of his 2nd place finish last week. He definitely needed that, as did Wosal, who moved up to 2nd overall. And over on the top 33 to 64, you can see the other members of the ranking with the likes of Evon, also Evon a little bit further down. The last few nations qualified in the ENC, and some battle brewing actually for those last spots in ENC with the USA and Turkey, as well as Slovakia also in the hunt as well. We're going to be moving over into our next segment. We did say that there was a lot of players that were in dire need of points that needed to make the most of this opportunity in USA, and one of those is the subject of our player profile. And no, it's not the winner, it's the runner-up this time around. Ha! We got you. It's in tagged Bren, the man from Twisted Minds.
Yeah, Bren, and very, very outstanding player. We just picked 3 moments that we just thought are very, very much impressive to do. But of course, you could also mention that he won Deep Dip 1 and 2. He is coming from an RPG background, but is also very, very fast on the tech environment or style, one could say. But the Twisted Mind player, of course, is the 2023 world champion. He has been 2nd in the Trackmania World Cup of 2025 and also won the big Trackmania Cup. But even beforehand, he played an event alongside Carl Jr. and it looked dire for him. He fell so far behind, and this was one of the craziest comebacks that I've witnessed. I was even live in the arena in Strasbourg. It was the Zerator Cup 2019. Brent fell behind, and how this works is that it's double cup mode, so both players collect points and they need to close it out. And Brent fell behind so much and still was able to be the 2nd player to close out cup modes alongside Carl Jr. And there you can see the winning moment as well.
And the lift of the trophy as well. June 26, 2019, both Bren and Carl, both as part of Team Solary at the time, lifting the trophy in front of a packed Zenith of Strasbourg. An absolute moment of history. In the previous game that was on TM2, now on the current game, World Championship 2023, November 26th, at the end of this particular Best of 9 series. KC, who started off with 2 back-to-back map wins before Solary retaliated, and eventually here on a 5-2 overall scoreline, you can see Bren, the snipe that actually got both him and Otak the World Championship title, and they became the first Frenchmen to be world champions since 2006 when Carl Louf claimed the first ever World Championship. And then we were mentioning the big Trackmania Cup. This is what happened on December 12th.
Yeah, so Bren and Wolsal already met just a couple of months ago in a 1v1 situation. Bren made it quite interesting in one of those rounds where he has thrown it away, so went to the very last map here, and Bren was able to close it out, staying ahead of Wolsal, losing him his last life. Bren was also the clear favorite to win this tournament, alongside Muda, Wolsal, and also Nako, who's also in there. So quite interesting to see that the top 4 players in this event do also perform very well in the Elite Cup so far, Geek.
Yeah, indeed. And as we close out the player profile, it's time to move on to the news. We do have a couple of minutes before qualifying, and we're going to start off with the driver signings. There was a little bit of a lull in the driver market, as I like to call it, but then yesterday we got the big news that some people were awaiting, and that is that Muda, the current championship leader, is no longer Orgless Kai.
Yeah, he joined ROC Esports. Welcome, and also congratulations to Muda. Already teasing it a bit beforehand, but now we have all the information about that. And let's see how much damage he can do today after his 42nd position. I mean, that's the answer of everything, but will he maybe find all the points today on Brazil? I think it will be hard. But there was another thing that we can definitely talk about, and that was that BS Plus competition extended Glass and Tjalic.
Yeah, Glass, Tjalic, and Snow for the entirety of the 2026 year. Now, these 3 French players had already been part of BS Plus competition and joined them back in June 2021, along with Dofault and Dark, who altogether were part of the Auto World team in the very early part of the game's life cycle. Ever since joining BS Plus, though, Glass, Tjalic, and Snow enjoyed a great variety of, creditable results in wide variety of events, from online stuff like the Trackmania Challenger League, the Magi Mondays, the Big Trackmania Cup a little bit more recently, or offline with the ZRT Cups. 2021, they finished on the podium spot, by the way, when it was played as a trio. There was also Gamers Assembly, there was the Ascension Tournament, or a little bit more recently, the Comic-Con Baltics. I say recently, it was back in 2024 already. Oh my god, we're getting old. But yeah. This is a tenure that has been going on for 5 years here. They're celebrating the 5th year anniversary this June, and they are really finding themselves in a really supportive environment, and that is something that is also valuable beyond the big signing that shake up the entire order in the Trackmania field. It's always nice to see those kind of signings happen as well. Now, beyond that, we also want to catch up on something that we were not able to talk to a little bit earlier on in the competition due to lack of time, and that is the announcement that came on February 27th, with the first early details of the Esports World Cup for Trackmania. $500,000 prize pool, the biggest single event payout in Trackmania history. Also the tournament overview, but perhaps the most debated on and talked about point was the ways of qualifying, which you can briefly see right there. And we're going to give you the rundown of everything that just happens there.
Yeah, so we can see how many slots or the preliminary allocation of how to qualify to the EWC. So the qualifiers for all the regions are on June 12th to 14th. But there's also 16 slots that are reserved for other competitions. Namely, one of them is the Elite Cup ranking, which takes the first 8 slots. Then we also have the EWC DreamHack Birmingham, which also takes 8 slots. So that means we have 16 more slots up for grabs. And you can see it also here as well. EWC Online Qualifier for North America will reward 3 slots for the remaining players. Then there's 2 slots for the South American region, 6 slots for the European region, 1 slot for the MENA region, as well as 1 slot for Asia, and 3 slots for the Oceania region here.
Yep.
So this is the details about it. But Geek, what is the order of priority? So if you get top 8 in Birmingham and also top 8 in Elite Cup, what counts first?
Well, the thing that's going to count first is the result from Birmingham, which means that, for instance, at the end of May 31st, if someone is in the top 8 and has already qualified through Birmingham, the slot will propagate downwards to 9th place. If the man in 9th place is already qualified, or the player that's in 9th place is qualified, it will propagate down to 10th and so on until the next eligible player is found. So there is going to be still some element of importance in getting some great results in the Elite Cup. Now, amidst all the talk about all of the slots allocation for Esports World Cup, it's easy to forget the other piece of the graphic, which is the tournament overview. There will be 2 stages. First up will be the group stage, where the 32 players will be divided into 2 groups of 16, and the groups are played in double elimination bracket. The top 8 of each group are then through to the playoffs, which will be played in a single elimination bracket, thus requiring a little bit of a change of approach when you make it to top 16. The one thing that remains constant across both phases, though, is the match format. Players will be playing on the Cup mode, Classic Cup mode, 4-player Cup mode, or 1v1v1v1 if you're of that persuasion, and the final status is set to be reached at 140 points. And compared to what we see, for instance, in Birmingham, there are a couple of similarities, but also key differences to be pointed out there.
But I mean, it's already kind of a pilot test, I would say, of how this tournament actually feels like, also as a viewer, as a player, as a caster, you know, all of that stuff. So Birmingham already gives us a brief expectation of what to expect at the Esport World Cup this year. But that was it for the weekly news segment.
Wait, I think you forgot something important. One more thing, Kai.
Oh, true, yeah, I did.
You forgot. You legitimately forgot about that, but I was going to phone you in. You phoned yourself in, so I'm going to let you do the honors.
Okay, so guys, the Trackmania Awards 2025 also, dude, it's so bizarre. They happen in 3 hours because, like, this is not scripted or something. I really forgot about it. Also, when we prepared for it, but like, I didn't want to plug it because Marius and we spent a lot of time preparing it. The Trackmania 2025 reveal stream will happen today at 20 CET. So make sure CET. So make sure to be there. Marius and me gonna talk a little bit about what happened in 2025. And yeah, I almost forgot it.
No worries, dude. We said a little bit earlier on, I got you covered. Why did you say you didn't want to plug it? Come on, it's a celebration.
It made a funny moment, okay?
It made a funny moment, but yeah, come on, it's a celebration of everything there was happening in Trackmania in 2025. Be they like the recognition of great achievements that happened in that year, recognizing the people as well, be they players, community members alike, and of course a chance to remember and commemorate some of the most defining moments of the prelude year to the year. So make sure to stick around after the Elite Cup is over. Of course, the time is at 8 p.m. CET on this very channel, or for those of you on Trackmania Standard Time, COTD+1. And once you get there, make sure to grab a snack, grab a beverage, and sit down because this is going to be a lot of fun as we are going to be concluding the news segment and jumping straight into the game because qualifying is underway.
Qualifying is underway, and maybe we can talk a little bit about the map here, because this one is, of course, a remake of Surf, which was formerly used in the Trackmania World Championship of 2023. I think Geek and me, we are vividly remembering this map. This was one of 10 maps. There's a little bit of changes to it, but the start in particular was very similar to it, and some other sections as well that have returned. For example, the part that Mullen now goes through, this plastic wall ride, was banked differently, but we had this exact obstacle there as well. But the fragile at the end has been removed for the last water sector, but you have a very unique mechanic here, and that's what you see here. You have Reactibus up, gliding on the water. Your tires are not affected by the water, but you can still drift on it. It's very unique, isn't it, Geek?
Yeah, it is a very unique thing indeed, as you're currently seeing we are on a very modest qualifying server, let's say that. We do follow along with the perspective of Mola. Just as a reminder, this is not the only server that is up. There are a multitude of servers that are up at the same time. We're going to try to see if we can join another server in the meantime as well, trying to showcase some different players, but bear in mind that we're making do with what the game is giving us, so I hope you understand that. In the meantime, you can see the leaderboard on the left-hand side of the screen getting populated as everybody gets their first run. And already we're seeing there was a little bit of a world record update. It was a 0.792 as we showed the leaderboard earlier on, courtesy of Rotaker.
Yeah.
Well, now it is Elcon who takes the record with a 0.765. Some people say that going in the regular way, like people say Optimize could be a 103.5 as the world record. After that, it can get a little bit funny. But yeah, 0.7s. This is already really, really stout. And keep in mind that this was done not in a qualifying server. You can see that because Afi's time is on the 104.0 currently.
Yeah, so 104, like sub 104 is really a very, very strong time. I expect that we do not see this time too often in the actual knockout competition, but now, of course, players have 50 minutes time to set the best time. Maybe we can also explain the format real quick, because you can see the overlay on the left-hand side as well. The top 64 players will join the Elite Cup server, and they are eligible of collecting Elite Cup points as well. So that is something that you need to look out for. You have 15 minutes of time. You have to set a time within the first 10 minutes, and then you can still improve. But if you set a time just after the first 10 minutes, it will not count to it. But what I wanted to mention as well, Geek, we have Elcon P1, Road Taker second, and then we have 3 players from the United Kingdom behind, Pack, Josh, and Epos. They look very, very strong today. Only 500 away, though, from the world record.
And for Pack and Epos, these are improvements that were done less than 10 minutes ago on the leaderboard. Josh had already posted his time almost a day ago at this point. Masa has also made a pretty big jump. Everybody seems to have kept everything under wraps until qualifying has rung the bell, or maybe even slightly before qualifying rung the bell. And you can see that rear-right ugly head with Bren and Mutta dipping into the 103s in the leaderboard with a .988 for Bren, .998 for Mutta. Epos is just short of breaking into the 103s on a .008. You can see also Pack in the leaderboard as well. Masa, Afi, Otak, Carl Jr., Elcon, and Granati completing the top 10 provisionally. And of course, you can see in the bottom 5 the players at risk. Currently, Pika, Kurisotina, Dark, then Lucario, and Spark currently in the top 64. Good on you, Spark, by the way. A player from the Indian community who I'm sure is going to try to punch his way through into the main event with the Asia qualifiers on June 12th to 14th, but if that he participated, of course. But it's still nice to see some players like him actually make an appearance on the leaderboard there.
But I think this should also motivate players that you have an opportunity to qualify directly. And of course, we have some Asian players on the field. You know, we have Spark, we've had Min, but we also have a lot of strong players from that region as well. I think Kuda was playing together with Spark as well.
Kuda and Spark.
There's a lot of players that are in there, and I think this should spark some motivation for them.
Ooh.
No pun intended there,
I see what you did
course.
there.
Yeah, but what I also wanted to talk about is the start here. The part that just Moller respawned. Holding gear 4 in this section is vital. You lose so much time otherwise, because it's a very, very hard and just difficult part to go through, because your tires are affected by water, and since you drive on plastic, they are not drying. They will just stay 100% wet going over there, and you need to hold gear 4, else you will have problems landing, and you will lose a lot of speed with that.
Yeah, indeed. And also important is the exit of the loop, because if you exit a little bit too far off to the right-hand side, you know that you do a little bit of, it's almost like stone skip, like when you throw a stone skipping over a lake. It's exactly the same concept. You get 2 bounces, and if you are a little bit off to the right-hand side, you gotta correct immediately on the first bounce by doing a little bit of steering input. If you fail to do so, well, you risk actually going into basically a pole that is right on the side, indicating the path to take, and that is going to be completely throwing away your run, and in case of a knockout, could definitely eliminate you. As we go on board with Moller right now, you can see he's right on the verge of dropping the gear. He was down on 195, but still going sideways, allowing him to keep the gear in the plastic before attacking the loop, and that is a solid start for the Swedish driver, but currently he doesn't feel like he's on an improvement from his 104.350 right now. He might have lost the gear on the landing after the stone skip, because it's another commonplace place in order to keep the gear there.
But interesting setup. They're going left-right in the footbath section that you also... Like, I just want to one-to-one copy that from the map serve of 2023 when you rightfully said that there as well. But there's a lot of nuances at the start. This left-right just gives you a better setup, just a visual or just a rhythmic setup to it. And then also you can get a nose side afterwards. You don't want to get too much airtime in that strand section beforehand, but Moller's on a great time right now. Here you want to go inside, you need to drop the gear anyway to go into that sector. Good nose-side exit for Moller as well. He's 0.2 ahead, looking like a very good run from him. Let's take a look if he can make it, if he can improve.
Yep, as we go on to the last glider. Oh, that's a shallow entry, though. He's lost a lot of time there. He didn't get the optimal setup when you go wide. He does compensate with great speed, though, on the second half of that glider, rightfully pointed out. And that is a .224, and he is actually comfortably into the top 64 right now. In fact, let's take a little bit of a look at the leaderboard now, shall we, for qualifiers. So you can see the top 10 there, going from Mutta to Wizzy. Mutta in the .822. As we do see Mola taking a little bit of a dive there. Carl and Spam are well in the field. Same for Leg and Gwen. Banks as well, looking to try and climb the hill after that early knockout earlier on USA. As for some of the other nations, Posito Paco and Richo are part of the top 40. 37th for Posito Paco, 39th Foricho, respectively. Noisia, the Argentine player from Onyx, currently sitting in 34th. We also see Lingo just ahead of him. Mime is in there. Flimsy is also in there as well, the American player from Team Onyx. Kakni, one of the top players in the Beacon World League at the moment, also very much in the field, currently sitting in 20th. And for those of you cheering for other nations such as New Zealand or Turkey, New Zealand, there is Baywa, currently sitting in 48th. Chemko in 45th. Birdie in 47th. Birdie, according to him, this is one of his strongest maps. He looks to qualify and try to get a solid outing there. This is where he reckons he could make up a lot of the ground compared to Chemko. And in terms of other players, we say Mola, there's Evon in there, there is also Jay Swag, so 2 New Zealanders in the top 64 right now. And also Mimo Jr.'s in there, Charles in there. There's a lot of great names actually in there. You see Charles popping up in the top 60 there.
Yeah, and look at the gaps as well. 104.405 now as it has refreshed. Muda in the lead right now with a 0.822. So very good time, but still short of the world record by 600ths of a second. But I thought it was much larger on this map, because the thing that I was a bit dreading when I played this map and I got the AT on it was the consistency on it. Are players able to find consistent lines through it, holding that gear, making sure to not get too much airtime in the first beach section, and also getting a nosedive afterwards, you know, not getting a zoop, because those are all things that occur to me, and I'm very much looking forward to see how the pro players are able to do it, as well as the entry, because Geek, I think for you as well, like, if you enter it wrong, you just get zooped away.
Yeah, indeed. If you enter with even one of your wheels getting close and basically just brushing the surface of the water, then you get insane speed just out of that, and you just end up with your car getting flogged off into the cliff face on the other side. Don't ask me how I know that, but yeah, this is going to be one key thing to know, and it seems as though everybody's managed to get that reined in somewhat nicely. The thing is, though, towards the very end, when we were on the board with Mola, you know, on that after that first hairpin in the final part, there is a little slalom where you go right side of the rock instead of the left side. This is the path of least resistance, quote unquote. But the timing for that is so precise. And then you have to set yourself up for the second hairpin. And we've seen some people accidentally trying to trigger a Neo, and in the end, it just ends up sliding out way, way, way wide there.
Yeah, I mean, it's so different to play this kind of, like, to play reactor boost, super reactor boost up, and then you just drive on water, and it feels a bit deceiving as well, because you think, oh, am I affected by it? But you just want to avoid it at any cost, you know? You don't want to dip into the water, else your car is just doing funny things. I think we're gonna see that as well, just completely spinning all over the place, but also Mola on a great time here. Let's see if he can make it across. Went a bit further inside, but he will improve again to a 0.191. So great time, and with that he should definitely be safe.
Yeah, he
by
should
the looks of it.
Yeah, he should be in, although he did lose a little bit of speed towards the very end.
Looking good though for him.
Yeah, he did lose a bit of time on the very end of the final hairpin, but still made some pretty solid time. Also someone making pretty solid time, speak of the devil, it is Masa, 0.785, clearing everybody else by a long shot and getting close to the public record set by on there.
Yeah, but also look on P62, maybe a new name on the leaderboard, Tamar in there as well. So good seeing that as well here, as we have 3 minutes and 30 seconds left. I'm currently on another server, of course, but this one is also not that densely populated, Geek. So it's kind of a similar trend. So even joining and like leaving and joining a server would probably not change too much here.
Yeah, we're just gonna be sticking around with Mola, who shows us. He shows us basically the daily life of a Cup of the Day, Cup of the Week qualifier in a sense. 10 minutes to make a banker time, then 5 additional minutes once you do the banker time in order to improve on that. And you see Mola actually succeeding in getting Division 1, something that I personally cannot really claim for myself, be it on Prime's Cup of the Days or on reruns. I can't seem to be to buy a Division 1 appearance these days, but nevertheless,
it's hard. Yeah,
it is a hard thing. Like everybody who makes who are regular competitors in Cup of the Day, the likes of Scrappy, who is the man with the most wins in Cup of the Day, if I'm not mistaken, people like Mudda and so on and so forth. Like learning a new track fast, and also even if it's on a track that's pre-praxed like Brazil, performing in 15 minutes. It's a very specific kind of exercise that does induce a little bit of pressure if you're not that much TA inclined, if you're a bit of an old diesel engine like me that takes 2 hours to get a solid run in.
So Muda is not the best fast learner, I would say. He takes, like, also when he practices maps or like fast learns maps like Vampus, he always takes a little bit extra time to just see what to do. But I mean, if you take a look onto Scrappy and Granadi, for example, it's just so impressive to see how fast they're able to learn a map, right? I couldn't do that within like an hour or two, right? And it's just impressive. And nowadays I can also not get Division 1, but that's also due to the fact that I hardly play the game, but who certainly plays the game a lot, a Smaller who could potentially drive a sub 104 here, 0.2 ahead. That is a great ending here.
No.
And he clips, and that's what you want to avoid. But still a very good run. Molle looks strong and also quite consistent. I mean, a bit paradox because he made that mistake.
That would have been a 0.9. That would have been a 0.9 for Molle. He's trying to get himself a little bit further up the field as like a feel-good factor, but still, like, that's such a shame to have a 0.9 thrown away. Because basically what happened there is he was rotating, the car came to a complete stop in the hairpin, and that set his front right wheel on the collision course with the rock, even though he's not part of Mudazorg, and that sent his car flying all over the finish line, and that was just an unfortunate one to see as we are now into the final runs, essentially, Kai. 50 seconds remaining, maybe the last time for the leaderboard to shift around a bit. You'll see that updated in due course, of course, on the left-hand side. What happened there?
I see a name on P79. Bad Lulu.
Oh,
I haven't seen that name in so long. Spark dropped to 85th position. But let's see who's going to get in there. It's the last couple of runs now. The gap is 0.539, 0.54 actually, between 64th and first position. So that is quite something, as Neil also gets his last run in on my server. I'm intrigued to see what he's able to do because he's right now 0.3 ahead, entering the last part, makes it across, has one more drift to do. What time is he driving? 104.449. And I think this will not be enough for Neil, so we have to say bye to him, not making it into the
And just division. As a quick final closer, it is going to be J-Swag sitting in 64th position, and actually he will be joined by his fellow compatriot Baywack. So 2 New Zealanders in there. There's Charles that's in there. There's a lot of great people that are in there, and the one who had the unfortunate honor of finishing 65th is Yek Costo by 12 milliseconds. And now we're going to be taking a little bit of time to, join Division 1, because this is going to be our match of interest, and it is set to start in less than 2 minutes. And for those of you wondering about the POV thing, this is something that is a bit out of our control. We're basically relying on what the server is showing us, and we're working with what we have. So make sure to recognize that and bear with us whenever we actually cover qualifying. And it's always a little bit difficult to cover qualifying anyway, because everybody is spread out across many different servers, and it can be very difficult to get everybody's point of view.
Yeah, I agree. J-Swag also got top 60 in the last cup, but he performed very well. I think he got even top 30, if I recall that correctly. So let's just see how that goes. And now we in for the fun parts. Let me join the server as well. I'm very much looking forward to that. To Division 1, of course. Good luck and have fun in the other divisions as well. There's plenty of divisions that players can play in as well that didn't make the cut as well. So don't worry about that one. All right, but let's maybe do a prediction at the start. Maybe we should do one. Are you up for that?
Do we do? So you want to predict the winner, right?
Yeah. Let's just predict the winner.
Honestly, I want to go with Rotaker. He's been pretty impressive in the very early parts. Given that this is a very different kettle of fish, going from TA to KO, I feel like he's got something. He might have something up his sleeve. I really reckon Rotaker could do it. Oh, you're pondering.
Yeah, I had to think a lot about that, but no, it was my internet. But
don't do this, man!
It was my internet, really. It was my internet, but it was kind of a good pause. But I just go with Pack. Why not? Let's just go with Pack, my boy.
All right, let's go with that. So Pack for you, Rotaker for me. I have a feeling one of either of us two is going to be coming away with a pretty bad call, but it's not going to start right now. We're starting off with the Grace round. As you know, in Cup of the Week and Cup of the Day for that matter, the first round is always what we call a Grace round. There are no eliminations pronounced, and this will give us the opportunity to watch how some of those other players are navigating through the sections, starting off with Tween, the Slovak player, currently sitting on board with him as we go through the loop, and now back out of the loop, going through the water skip, and you can see him towards the top end of the field. And we can also see Birdie already strutting his stuff in round 1.
Yeah, but Tween was struggling a lot on USA. But funny, because I also clicked on Tween without me knowing that you clicked on him as well. But of course, Grace Run, everybody's just getting used to the map. I hope that the gaps will not be 6 seconds for P60 in the next rounds. But Gwen, of course, playing as well. Stuft's also coming back. I think he wasn't there last time. Not sure if he even played that map. But of course, only 5 of the 10 results do count at the end. So don't be deceived by the rankings so far, and that's why Moda's first position are such a strong result already.
Yeah, and we're already seeing the end causing some problems. Even in the Grace round, you saw Birdie go fly off after bonking a rock just before the final corner, and Asjon do the same at the final corner itself. So there's going to be some speech bubbles that might be popping up every now and again here in those rounds, but that's about to be expected with a mechanic like the water gliding, as we did see Pusito Paco with some problems. Let's hope it's not a connection issue that might affect him, the likes of like Otak was affected in the very first round on China. You may remember that. He was not able to even turn a wheel in the very first round of knockouts. And speaking of which, it's time to go racing, ladies and gentlemen. Round 2 out of 40. The bottom 2 will be eliminated.
And I cannot spectate Paco, so I think he deceived. So Paco is our first player who will be eliminated on 64th, pulling an Otak here, and is now out of this round. But who is going to go out with him? That's, of course, very unlucky here for the young Hungarian player. It is Sin who has gotten a slowdown, and you lose so much time with it. But Kurizo Tina, even with a worse landing here, 3 seconds behind, but nothing has been decided yet. But everybody makes that transition nicely. So Kurizo Tina needs to rely on a miracle. That can probably happen on the second water glider part.
Yeah, indeed, as we are going through Sector 3 and getting towards that second water glider part, following along with Glast, who is going to be going toe-to-toe with his teammate Chalik. Meanwhile, up top, it is a Team Liquid 1-2 that's shaping up with Stubbs somewhat splitting the difference in the middle in second place. Otak in third, as we're continuing to follow along with Glast through the glider section. Lingo has crashed into the pole on the outside, and the Canadian might be on his way out. Lingo is completely down and out. Indeed, he only needs 1 stoppix in the rock, and Kurizo Tina's miracle has just happened, and he will survive the first knockout round. Lingo will get knocked out fair and square, quote-unquote, as he got caught out in the glider part. And for Pusito Paco, it's a shame to lose anybody on a technicality, but the Hungarian does not even turn a wheel and goes out in 64th.
But already big knockouts here with Lingo and Paco, and that's what I mean beforehand. You want to avoid getting watery tires as much as possible. It's so hard to control. Your car can also just spin. Lingo, of course, now went for a double respawn, but he wasn't able to control it. So Lingo's out, as well as Paco. I hope that everything is okay on his end, but of course, having a DC like that is just very, very unlucky. Let's go with P number 2 here. Okay, he's now on P17. I just went with Afi, and I kind of want to focus on him as well, because for me, he was a player that can definitely play a huge role in this competition as well, and could also be a player that could end up in top 10 at the end, or maybe top 8 even. But he wasn't really having the best of results in the last couple of steps. So I think this is one step where he can really bounce back from, as well as many other players. I think this could be a huge map for them. I've also seen the likes of Stufts having an incredible first round coming into play. Neon also doing very good in this round as well. Noisia as well. And I think this map will once again shuffle the field. And if I remember it correctly, Birdie also said, I'm not sure if you mentioned that already, that this might be his best map as well.
Yeah, he already came out swinging, saying, yeah, this is probably going to be my strongest map of them all. He even held the world record on the previous version of the map before it got updated with the camera forcing being removed. And yeah, it seems like so far he's planning to keep himself somewhat quiet, keep it low-key, keep it safe, as he makes it through another round. And the one who's going to make it through another round as well is Golden Nuggets, finishing in P60. And the first BS Plus driver to go down will be Snow in 61st. And J-Swag, much like Paco, it seemed like, seems to have disconnected. And the man who had such an incredible performance on USA last week out did not even get to turn a wheel in round 2.
Yeah, too bad for him that he couldn't make it in there and cannot make it into the next round. But BS Plus, you were mentioning it. I mean, they just extended their signing, and we also have Glast in here. in Division 1, as well as Tialic. So all the BS Plus players have actually made it, which is very cool to see. And another thing that I wanted to say as well, you know, BS Plus went into the Trackmania Challenger League, and they really opened the door for Snow and Glass to become competitive mixed style players. BS Plus gave them the opportunity, and they didn't perform well. They had their maps, but at the end, like for me, this was just the biggest upside, that they signed those two players and they made it into the Challenger League, and they performed very well at the end after a rocky start.
Yeah, that is true. An organization that is very supportive of their players, and that's why they decided to extend their contract, and it's something great to see. What's great to see for BS Plus is that currently they're also pretty quiet. They're still in it, Glass and Challenge, compared to both Kurisutina and Evan. Evan, who crashed out late, he was actually trying to, Kurisutina was trying to follow along with Feed, who was sitting in 59th, but then a crash from the Polish player who formerly played Trackmania Grand League as part of course, Devils 1, Team Secret, and even did a little bit of a stint as a stand-in player in Into the Breach. Well, unfortunately, a crash for Evan sees him knocked out in P60, and Feed can actually thank his lucky star that happened, and I think Feed is one of those players, maybe the only one in the field that actually participates whilst also playing a lot in the meantime. There is the Insalon that's happening in Rennes this weekend. They managed to make a little bit of way for those that participate in the Elite Cup to actually do so, and it's great to see that Feed managed to make the field.
Yeah, and I was following Binks here, and you could have just seen how much speed he gained towards the others who have gotten a weak landing. Binks was able to hold that gear, so he's up to 52nd place already. But Let's right now in trouble, but we've seen a mistake from Epos. Oh, this is not good for Epos. Epos having watery wheels. He has no speed to work with, and this could be the first very, very big knockout here. Team Liquid, Epos still with water wheels, and I think he will be eliminated in this round. He has no speed to work with, and I think his tires have now dried completely, but 8 seconds of a gap. He needs a miracle here for him to make it into the next round. Noisia 3.3 seconds behind, and he will cross the finish line now. But he also eliminated, so GGeek, Epos is out in this round.
Yeah, it seems as though Epos got a little bit reactored from what we can gather. And yeah, it's a good catch on your part, because I actually saw the mistake from Nighttech, who actually full stopped it into the reactor gate. And yeah, on the inside. And good catch on Epos, and that is very unfortunate early exit for the man from Team Liquid, which is definitely going to hamper his chances of remaining into the top 8 overall in the Elite Cup standings. And also Noisia, he had a bit of a crash a little bit later on in the second glider part. He went a bit wide and full stopping into one of the signposts that marked the way towards the first corner. As we go on board with Massa, one of the men who actually wanted to bounce back last week after a very early knockout on France. He managed to do so with another 5th place finish, if I recall correctly, or 6th place finish, there or thereabouts. Currently sitting in 6th. Yeah, 5th place and 6th in the EWC standings, as a matter of fact. And right now, he's looking to be at the very sharp end of the field. And we do see, in terms of the biggest losers, there is Key. And most importantly, there is Letsta. This is going to be one very big knockout as well for these two guys. And Jan has a bit of a buffer in order to see that coming. Thus, he will be sitting in P54 with about a 3.3 second gap between himself and elimination. But I saw somebody that actually full stopping. That is Afi. We were talking about him. He needed a desperate need of a good result, and that might be hampering his chances. Letster is not gonna get knocked out. He will not finish last or even second to last. Er wird nicht Letzter oder vor Letzter. Letzter finishes P54. 55th for Afi. Back-to-back disastrous outings for the Swiss driver, which is definitely gonna put a dent in his early season.
Yeah, so I was following Letsta, and I just wanted to say he was struggling in the round beforehand already. I've spotted Key's mistake as well. He crashed right after the looping, actually, because there's a checkpoint as well being placed just after it, and you want to avoid that one as well. So very unfortunate to see that here from Afi as well, getting eliminated. One of the bigger names, and we are only 5 rounds in. And also one player who's playing is Tona as well, 54th, alongside Aurel. They are last at that checkpoint. How poetic is that? Both have been playing the spammy of the World Tour, it was, as well as the the Trackmania World Tour in general. So Tona and Aurel, Aurel kind of returning, showing that they're capable of performing well.
Already performing a semi-return in 2025 with the Trackmania World Tour. Tona and Aurel competing together as part of Team Lion Coast. Of course, a little bit of a nod back to the past where these two were former teammates at Team Lioncast. They were able to make some really good results for themselves. What is not going to be happening, though, is a good result for Spam, who has had a very, very big crash. The man from Team Falcons is down in the doldrums in last position. Are there any significant crashes that could actually throw him a lifeline? Baywak does have a little bit of a moment, saving Link in the process. And Dionysos is actually going to be dropping down in P54, but Spam will not be able to see the light of round number 8. And the Dutchman from Falcons is out 8/10 down compared to Baywak. We all thought Baywak's round was over, but he got saved by the bell and by Dionysos, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, and this is very good for Stuft for the Esports Nations Cup ranking, of course, because with that, Stuft, of course, has now, it's in his hands, right, to overtake Spam. It's very close between them in general, but Spam could get overtaken by him very, very soon. He sits on P36, Stuft is on P39, and he's only a couple of points. How many points is that? Spam has 104, Stuft has 96. Of course, nothing set in stone. The best 5 results do count, but still a very good opportunity for Stuft to collect some points and just walk away from Spam a little bit. But right now, who's certainly not going to walk away with good points here is Baywak, as he's the player who's right now last. But still, it's a very close round here. Only 1 second. Everything to play for. But again, Letzter struggling here a lot. 51st position for him, battling with Tween and Feet here in this round. And this will all come down to the ending. Who's going to make a mistake? Who's willing to push further?
Chemko slowed down dramatically. Chemko slows down dramatically. One of those that were actually locked in battle for Turkey. Sorry to interrupt you, Kai, but that might be throwing a lifeline for Feed, Golden Nugget, and Tween until we get to the last corner, though. Nothing is settled. Chemko trying to go for the move, going for the throw. It's not enough by less than 7/10 of a second, 7/100 of a second, as a matter of fact. I keep misplacing the decimal, but you get the idea. That was a big send from Chemko. It wasn't meant to be, and he will get knocked down in P50 first. P52 will be for Baywak, and we're already down 14 players compared to the starting field.
14 players already out. This one progresses very, very fast. But this was a close round here, Geek. Only 1 second between first and last here, 1.5, give or take. So that was a great round. But who's still in this? Tamar. I wanted to talk about him playing from Israel, but I think after this mistake, he will not be in anymore. He has not gotten the best line in this sector, as well as Stuft. I was just talking about it beforehand as well. Stuft's losing the gear there as well. He's 1 second behind, and Tamar will also get eliminated, but Stuft still somewhat in the tail end of the field. Half a second, that is definitely something that someone is able to lose. And also Stuft just goes safe, just tries to stay in close proximity towards the other players here, but he needs to allow a mistake, and this actually happens. Golden Nuggets, I think, had to respawn.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's why you don't DNF. That's why you don't succumb to the temptation of pressing Del on your keyboard or whatever it is
risk
you
too
do.
much.
Risk too much.
Oh,
Bestie flying off, and one of the other halves of the brothers duo, along with Hill, might be out. He is indeed out with that full stop pick into the rock. Golden Nugget is saved for another round. Tamar gets knocked out along with Bestie. Stuft, he knew that he could somewhat get away with maybe a slight slowdown that he had a little bit earlier on. He knows, well, there is still some havoc in Sector 2 and 3. I can basically pick off my fights and pick off players here and there and still be in. And that's exactly what happened. And Bestie, that was a bit of an unfortunate end. Let's say that. Ouch.
It was, because he hit the rock there as well afterwards. And well, I mean, there was nothing to do about it. It looked funny, but he just couldn't react to it because the car is so unresponsive. You know, like your ex-girlfriend on whatever platform,
Careful
right?
there. Be careful, son.
So, you know, it's so hard to control that. Let's say it in that regard. But right now, only one player has made a mistake. It's Rixo, who's 1 second behind. Letzter again, not with the best start, alongside Tween and Feet and Golden Nugget. It seems like we have the same couple of players in the back, but they somewhat survive all along. But right now, Letzter, he needs to push it. He's 0.1 behind Glass, but all of them getting a good approach. Tween, not with a good line there as well, losing a lot of speed as well here, as well as Feed. It's still everything to play for in the end.
Yeah, everything to play for in the end. Following along with Letster right now, who sees Feet and Glass going side by side into the glider part. Big attack of Letster on the entry into there. Might be a bit of a shallow entry into that second to last corner. Glass going on the outside of the rock. Can Letster pull something through? The answer is a no. He will get knocked out. And this time, I'm going to do the meme again. Letster, aber vor Letster, 47th, 48th place for Risho. And I said careful there, Kai. I have a feeling that little jab was due to some personal experiences, but we're not going to go into that. We're going to go straight back into the round and go on to the battle for top 44.
You mean with the ex-girlfriend meme?
Yeah, you know what I meant.
Nah. But I mean, everybody's just like, yeah, you're getting donor walled afterwards. But no, I'm happily taken. You know, I have ex-girlfriends, but I'm happily taken for 3 years. She's still a woman for the life, so everything is good, right? I got there, let's say it like that. But who certainly is not getting there in this round is Heath, who is on 46th position. And then also New Prime, the fellow teammate of Letster, for Team Shift, is also fighting for survival, as well as Tween, Azion, Birdie, and Feed are also in there, as well as Golden Nuggets. But it's still a very close round. Everything to play for here, as New Prime is not looking too bad here, but it's so close, packed together. Only a couple of thousands. Birdie risking so much over the hole. Slows down a little bit, but it all comes down to this last water glider section. New Prime, very inside. There's a mistake happening. That is Soldier. Soldier will be out, but who is joining him of going knockout in this round? It's so close. Aurel, Golden Nugget. One mistake has happened. It's Charles.
Link,
who's eliminated. No, Link. What happened?
Well, Charles bunked the rock, then Link slid out as well. He bunked the rock on the inside. Well, Charles went outside, Link went inside, and who comes through in the middle? Soldier, who had a crash early on in the last glider section, and the Belgian is through in 44th place and lives to see another round.
Too bad.
Again, expect cinema in the final sector, because there is a lot of stuff there is a little bit of wiggle room for things to shift about, and sometimes you attack a little bit too much, you go over the sand, it makes it a bit of an angle, you get zooped, and that's it.
Yeah, very unlucky for Link there as well, of him just getting that weird bounce outwards, just getting... He could have... In some instance, he could have maybe zooped into the finish, but it was hardy to control, as the car is just hardy to control there in this sector. But let's go into the next one, as we have the previous winner, Wosal, not with the best landing, has no speed to work with, as well as Coco here. So Wosal needs some mistakes here, or needs to push a lot in this part here, but he's 1.1 second behind. Genji Wosal could get eliminated in this round unless someone else makes a mistake here, Geek.
Yeah, but he can afford to try and catch back up, because that was towards the exit of the loop, and also a bad double water balance that have cost him a lot of time. He's going to have to potentially pray for someone a bit further up ahead in the leading group to have some troubles in the water glider, but we've seen that happen plenty of times already. You can already see the attack, and Tween looking a bit slow. Wosal being thrown in left line. He's going side by side with Feed as well. Going into the final corner. He makes it through in last place by 44 milliseconds. Wosal is through and will knock out his fellow countryman Coco, and Tween as well with that slow. You saw him stuck in the inside, didn't get the proper angle to get the slide in and angle the car into the corner. So unfortunately for the Slovak player, it is already lights out.
Wow, what an ending there from Wosal, just risking it for the biscuit there, and is ahead of Coco by 0.04 of a second. So Wosal still in there, top 42, but we're not even halfway through here. We're just a third through, one could say. 13 out of 40 rounds have been played. And Molle, we followed along, has the best start in this round. Melio as well. Elcon, who's the world record holder on this map, right now in last position, but gets a good gear. So still in close proximity to the others. Sin has lost the gear. Sings has lost the gear here. So he's 0.8 behind right now, battling with nobody here, as he's still 0.3 away from Neon here, who gets a good line in this sector. But still, the rounds are so close here already, and we're not even in the top 20 just yet.
Yeah, it's still, it looks like the first two sectors are really good. The first part of Sector 3 is good, but again, the last glider section, this is where everything seems to unravel for some of these players, and maybe Sinks could take advantage of that, matter of fact, as we go onto the glider right now. Going on to that with the perspective of the Norwegian. Neon going so close to the gate of the checkpoint there. He caused a few heart flutters. Chalik potentially on the verge of getting knocked out as well. Oh, Birdie's out. Birdie has crashed into the rock on the inside. And the man who said that this was his favorite map gets knocked out early. And that is a huge blow to his chances of going up against Chemko, but most importantly, of potentially battling for one of the 16 slots in the NC.
Yeah, this could have been a huge map for Birdie to perform well in, but sadly, he has been not making the ending accordingly. But Geek, I have to be honest, there were a lot of mistakes in this last drift here on this map, as opposed to the other sectors of the water glider parts on this map. I think the ending really took a toll on one or another players here, as Pack now doesn't get a good start in this round. He is 0.4 behind, but gets a good gear. Lego with an awkward landing, had to readjust here quite awkwardly because he needed to hold that gear, so that's why he might have just went more outside and couldn't steer as much. But there's another mistake. Mime again missed out on the checkpoints, having to respawn. Mime facing elimination on P40, and this tournament in general so far is not really going good for Mime here at all. P33 for him, 29th, 28th, and 33rd position for him, and now he will be eliminated in P40. He needs a miracle for him to not get eliminated here. I mean, we have seen it in the past, but 4 seconds, you can also just respawn them. There's plenty of checkpoints. There's 19 checkpoints on this particular map, and a lot in the end.
Oh,
well,
Otak is out.
Otak. No, what happened to Otak?
Mime
and Otak out?
Ooh.
Oh my god.
That is a big knockout, and I was kind of tunnel visioning on seeing if Legu, the likes of Legu and whatnot, can make it through, and then I just look at the left side of the screen, that leaderboard, and the man who finished 3rd last week, who needed so many of these points and got a good chunk of them last weekend on USA, gets knocked out before even the top 30. Well, gets knocked out in 40th. That is a big, big knockout and a huge blow to his chances of making it into the top 8 in the provisional standings, of course, here in Elite Cup. And it's such a shame to have it happen after such a great result that he had last week, as we're going to go following along with Tona, who's right in the middle of the field, trying to fight for survival, currently sitting in 34th. So as we go through the glider section, rocking a beautiful skin, might I add, celebrating the very first edition of the Trackmania games that happened earlier on this year. Roadtaker with a bit of a clip on the inside. That is going to be also a potential upset, as he was one of the yeah, that's my prediction. That might be gets sent down the drain. He's done in 38th, and he's going to have to wait until the water glider. He's going to need 2 people to crash there. Are there going to be any mistakes, any heartbreaks at the glider? Jadon slows down, but he still remains ahead of Roadtaker. Is there going to be another huge crash? There's speed. Roadtaker crashes into the gate, and it is over for the Polish player from Team Ekmek, who gets knocked out in 38th, and Feed will get knocked out in 37th as well.
Yeah, the mistake there from the KO from Ota kind of reminded me of the one that we've had from Carl Jr. on USA last week. It just happened out of nowhere, right? So that's just how quickly things can turn around. But let's go into round number 16. 36 players left here. Jadon got saved in that round, and let's go with Nitek here on P36. He was in that checkpoint, but certainly caught up quite a bit. Finds himself in the middle of the pack, holds that gear quite nicely in that sector, and gets a good water bounce here as well. Important to hold that gear in that sector. And there's a huge mistake that has happened by the looks of it. Who was that? Let's see.
That was Jan.
Across the checkpoint, it is Jan, and also Jan and Jan.
There's too many Jans. There's Jan with one end that messed up a little bit later on in the map, and then there's Jan with 2 ends.
Funny.
The Slovenian driver from Team Eterna, who actually I think he might have lost the gear during the loop or something like that, because it was going out way early. And then the other Jan that we have a little bit further up in P35 is trying to catch his fellow countryman Gold Nugget, who's currently 1.3 seconds up the road himself, finding himself a little bit isolated as well from the leading group, actually. Gold Nugget. It's a bit sad to see, but he gets joined by Hill, who has a bit of a slow one, and Hill might actually throw a lifeline to Jan, unless I was getting my hopes up a little bit too soon there. Oh man, that clip from the rock on the inside from Hill, sending his car almost in a semi-barrel roll. Oh boy, Jan, 1 and 2 ends, knocked out in 35th and 36th. Man, my brain is almost fried just from trying to distinguish which player is which.
Yeah, I mean, it's the German/Dutch Jan or
No,
the,
no, yeah, or the
Slovakian Jan,
or the Slovenian driver. Yeah.
Slovenian is
Yeah.
not Slovakia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they have that. So Jan and Jan are out. So it's probably a 9 for them, not a ja. Right. So,
Okay. Yeah, I got it. I got it.
Terrible.
No,
That was a
don't worry,
terrible
I got it. Meanwhile,
That
let's
was
go along with
terrible.
Flimsy towards the tail end of the field. The man from Missouri, if I'm not mistaken, Flimsy. Wait, is it Ohio or Missouri? I can't. I'm trying to follow the states of each and every single player from the United States. I'm bound to get them somewhat wrong, but yeah, the man from Team Onyx currently on board with him through the glider, giving us another perspective and a lot of water sprinkled under the visor. There we go. Now they get wiped away as we go back with the overhead camera, and he's fighting for survival along with Heath, 31st and 32nd, and look who's there behind. That's Banks, who suffered a bit of a bad start. The man from AG Global, looking to try and get back on the saddle after an early knockout, is in the doldrums as well, and Heath has crashed out. Good catch, Guy. I was a bit tunnel visioning on Banks, but yeah,
Challenge
a little bit slow, throwing a lifeline for Heath, not quite. Golden Nugget also looking to be under wars. It would be enough, I think, for Golden Nugget unless there's a monumental crash. There was a crash at the exit of the final corner from Challenge. Heath will get knocked out regardless in 33rd position, and Golden Nugget quietly managing to get himself a pretty solid outing. Right now locked into the top 32.
Golden Nugget has been in the bottom 4 positions so often in this knockout already, and he is still in this one, top 32. And of course, now we have the first major point jump, someone could say, where we go from just 2-point intervals to 4-point intervals. So now we go from 32 to 36 points, and then it will be 40 onwards for 2 intervals there. So that's how it is, and let's see who gets those points, the 36 points in here, as Aurel and Tona certainly didn't get the best of starts, but Scrappy is now finding himself behind, as you can see here. Gets a good line over there. Aurel a bit slow there. Never mind, he just gets a very wide exit. I thought that he will not get as much speed out of that corner, but so far, no mistake, and Scrappy finds himself in last position still. No one with a mistake there. Scrappy almost clipping, though. Aurel falling behind as well, as you can see here, but it all comes down to the last part here. We have seen another slight slowdown there from one or another player, but it's not enough for Scrappy to catch up from. Scrappy still in there.
Aurel's
very,
out.
very good push there, but I think Aurel will be eliminated, but who's joining him? Scrappy still pushing. Scrappy still on second last, and Scrappy will actually be out, and Golden Nugget is in again on P30. I don't believe it. What a round though. Scrappy fighting for his life, but it wasn't enough. Aurel and Scrappy are out on 32nd and 31st.
Yeah, and I think Stichwort Golden Nugget, if I may interject. I think the chat over on our channel is putting on their best JC Pinkman impression, given the amount of "he can't keep getting away with it" messages that I do see from time to time. But yeah, Golden Nugget continuing his impeccable outing so far, continuing to let himself be a little bit quiet until the very latter parts where he has to fight for survival, but he managed to make it through. Aurel with a very huge barrel in the last glider got knocked out pretty prematurely. Oh, and Mudda, the newest signing from ROC, had a bit of a slowdown at the landing into checkpoint number 5, and he finds himself in a bit of a spot of bother, currently sitting in 30th, 3/10 down from the Tona, who's at the tail end of the leading group. But as we've seen earlier on, and as we continue saying, watch the last glider part. This is where things can unravel for players, and this is where those at the back have opportunities to actually survive for another round. We're coming to that part now after that long dirt. Let's do the cancel slide. Nicely done for Moda. Beautifully done. He's now towards the tail end of the leading group. He's made the junction already as we go onto the glider. Are there going to be any big slowdowns in there? Oh, Tona almost doing the same barrel that Aurel did a little bit earlier on. Golden Nugget maybe getting knocked out finally. Hale and Moda. Moda is out early for the second time in 2 weeks. Granted, a little bit later than what he did yesterday or last weekend with a 30th place, but that is back-to-back somewhat setbacks there for the provisional standings later in the Elite Cup.
Yeah, and I think on the flip side, the other person that got eliminated alongside with him, Golden Nugget, he's very happy with that certain performance here of him getting into the top 30. That is definitely a good result. Top 29 even, but Muda eliminated again in a very close round though. Only a couple of tenths between the players in there, and Stuff's also so inside there in this sector. Doesn't make a mistake, but the match is heating up. We're marking the halfway point after this round. Ender losing the gear, finding himself behind. Legu also with a mistake. 1.3 seconds it is. And this could be one of the more like rounds where the gaps are a bit wider apart, as Legu and Ender now have to rely on a mistake because they're almost a second, if not even more, behind the last surviving player, which is currently Kakne and Elcon. Can just save it a little bit here, of course, but they can also not fully release or save the turns, as Mario sometimes would do in those kind of situations, maybe over-safing. But I think all players are prepared if you're in the top 28, and that looks good. No one with a mistake here, and it seems like everybody does survive it, and Ender and Legu are indeed eliminated.
I think this is the first one where the last sector was calm. Like, there was no big slowdowns. There was no...
It was a calm round, yeah.
Yeah, it was surprisingly calm. Maybe a bit too calm. We don't like that after what we've seen so far in the early part of this particular knockout section. But yeah, as you said, we're past the halfway point. We have 26 players remaining in the shot for victory here on Brazil 2026. We're following along with Stutz, running a very nice camouflage livery, might I add, going on board with the Dutchman as he makes his way through the loop and now exiting the loop. And we're going to be seeing Gwen slowing down a little bit. He's at the tail end of the field along with Melio. No big slowdowns to be speaking of until we get to the landing before checkpoint 5, where this time it's the man from Twisted Minds, Bren, the runner-up from last weekend, which is going to be finding himself fighting for survival. But that job has been done a lot easier with that huge miss in the glider part from Glass. You saw him not even barrel rolling, but basically spinning like a little bit of a Beyblade in that particular sector, dropping down to 26, and a huge clip. It was from Nitek. So Melio and Bren look to be safe. Emphasis on look, because again, the glider comes in. It was somewhat calm last time out. Hill will fall victim to a slight misalignment in the first corner of this last glider sector. So Melio, Bren, Wolsal are safely in, and Nitek will be safely in as well. You could see him also stop trying to temporize it a little bit, just making sure that he would turn the corner before stomping on the gas. And Glast and Hill are now down and out in 25th and 26th.
Yeah, so lucky for Nitek there that Hill made a mistake, had a very, very poor entrance, and was just too inside on that first glider section at the end, and then completely missed out on the turn. I think got a nose slide or just a weird alignment there, so he was eliminated. 24 players left here. And still, Bimi, another Russian player, is in, as well as Nitek. So the Russian... the Russian qualifier could get more interesting here if Bimi performs nicely, but let's see what happens in this round. Neon and Azion are a bit further behind, but also Massa, not with a good landing, was very slow there, probably didn't get a good transition in that corner. So let's follow Massa here in this round and see if he can catch up. He's 0.7 behind. He was very fast, though, in the seeding. And let's see what he's able to do in this round. He was on first position with a 103.785, so he's able to go fast here. And yes, Melio was fast, and there was, I think, another mistake happening. It was Azion, so Massa back on 22nd position, but not safe just yet, even though Azion didn't get a good entry into that sector as well. Tona going super wide there, trying to save it a lot, but he will not lose too much time due to that. And well, another calm and collected ending for the players. Azion and Melio are out, and no changes in the end.
Yeah, and that slowdown for Melio basically happened because, you know that double right-hander, that uphill one before the second plastic part? He clipped at the apex with the right front, and that triggered the acceleration penalty, which sent the Frenchman all the way to the back of the field, and that is going to be, well... He had a top 8 finish last time out. He wanted to try to repeat that feat, but unfortunately that is not meant to be, as we're going to go on to the next round, and we're going to be following along with Mr. Cole Jr., Mr. 7-time world champion, the man from Falcon Esports, as we go along on board with him. We're through the loop and currently sitting in the right sort of spot. He's right in the middle of the field, and one of the guys who didn't get the best of starts is Granati, actually. The wheelman from Big, one of the two big players that, had an unfortunate early exits very early on in the rounds. Not last week, but I think it was in France. Massa was the one who got knocked on in P59. Granati tried to... hold on and hang on for dear life. Right now, he's going to try to hang on for dear life as well, as he tries to catch back up to the back of Mola and Nitek, as he tries to get himself his spot into the top 20. Going through the double dirt right-hander as we go. onto the beach and onto the last glider part as we switch from cars to unlimited hydroplanes through that final sector in the last sets of corners. Granati still very much in with a shot of trying to survive. Mola being sent back down to last place. Granati will finish second last, and that is a big, big knockout. Granati down in 21st, Mola down in 22nd, and that's one of the big players out, even though there are even bigger players, if you pardon the pun, that are still in it to win it. And this could be making a bit of a changing the complexion of the German qualifier for the ENC standings.
New Prime also still in, as well as Massa, of course. Germany was eliminated on Paris, or not Paris, but we had Paris-themed elements on this map. On France,
close enough.
I always confuse that, right? As well as I wanted to say Rio about this map here as well, but of course it's Brazil. So, you know, Germany didn't look that well on there. I think everybody was eliminated except Granadi, who was then, I think, on P15. He got out there quite early on. I think that was the last 2 KO rounds that here comes up very soon as well. But it is Massa now with a poor start as well as New Prime. So both the Germans in 19th and 20th position, and New Prime is 2 seconds behind. And Massa still in close proximity towards the others, but can he overtake in this round? Good nose slide. Soldier is getting applied, I guess it's getting applied a lot of pressure here for Massa as Tona again goes so wide there, zooms away with the reactor boost attached to his car. But Massa catching up to Soldier, a bit wobbly landing. Binks and Beamy as well. Oh, and Massa will barely stay in, overtakes Soldier in the end by 0.08 of a second. But New Prime, due to his prior mistake, is out. But look how close it was between 1st and 19th. Only 0.4 between the players.
Yeah, and that was also it was a slight tap of the rock, like the middle rock before the final corner. Not in the corner itself, like way before the final corner. And Soldier somehow survived that. I thought his car would be sent into the Shadow Realm at this point, but he managed to make it through, but lost just enough speed to allow Massa to sneak in and continue on his merry way, as we're going to be following along with Pac, the man from Vitality, 2-time world champion, as he makes his way through the loop and now go back out of the loop and go back to the overhead camera. And Pac is right in the middle of the things as well. Currently, everybody managed to make this start clean pretty much. 3/10 between first and last. It's still pretty much all to play for. Cockney, just a bit slow, will fall back down in the field as we go through the glider part. Gwen barely hitting the inside gate midway through that chicane. How did he survive that? Massa slowing down. He didn't get the slide. He didn't get the drift on the way up the double right-hander. Cockney looking very slow as well. It's all kicking off in the second sector here on Brazil. Gwen looks to be safe very temporarily here. It's a 6/10 buffer, but as we've seen earlier on, things can shift about drastically in the last sector. But so far, it looks as though the gaps are a bit too big. Stufts, oh yeah, but Stufts should be in. It should be in 5. Who's not going to be in? Flimsy flies away, and Massa goes through, and both American players from Onyx, Cockney and Flimsy, are sent out. Flimsy, you saw his car enter sideways, dipped below the surface of the water, and as soon as he exits, that's the zoom that I was briefly talking about, and that was it. His race was over.
Well, that's how it can look if you cannot control the car in the end. If you get a bit of watery wheels, the car is just unable to control, and those funny mistakes or just funny incidents do happen. So it looked a bit funny, but of course Massa will find that one very, very good, because he got a slowdown. Massa got a slowdown in that sector by the looks of it.
He got a slowdown and then didn't manage, as a result, didn't manage to get the drift to make it through the double left, or double right rather.
Yeah, so Massa got a slight slowdown. They're losing a bit of time. So he's again on P16. And this was also the last 2 KO rounds. So that means we only left with 1 elimination per round. So 15 more rounds to be played. And Massa now catching up to Nitek. Very good entry into the drift sector here, as he's now back into the 15th position. Nitek, however, needs to rely on a mistake here, because he's already 0.2 of a second behind, or he needs to push the ending so much here. Good nose slide there as well, but could have been a bit better though. But Nitek still not finding some gap here. But Jadon with a mistake, and Jadon will be eliminated here unless another incident like in the round beforehand does happen. But no, this will not be the case. Jadon out on P16. Nitek plays another day, as well as Beamy. So still 2 Russian drivers in the mix.
Yeah, and the one that is colloquially referred to as the British S-Boss in the chat, He got brought up. You caused this. This is your fault, chat. You had to bring him up once, didn't you? And that's what happened. Knocked out in P16. And you saw the comeback from Masa. And you could also hear it in the background of Turbo as he pressed B for boost or switch from gasoline to nitromethane or something. But yeah, Masa still in despite some very, very close calls. As we're going to be switching along with the winner from last weekend, Wosao from Team GGeek, currently sitting second in the Elite Cup standings and in with a shot of continuing to build on an advantage. And Membeat made his shot at trying to get Pack. Well, Pack certainly seems to have made a mistake. I was going to try to conclude my attention and say, trying to have a shot at Mutta for the lead of the standings, but then you were kind of putting words in my mouth that, yeah, Pack, unfortunately, with a bit of a slowdown after the start, will be sent back in P15, and you see that Gwen and Nitek will be basically sitting pretty. Currently sitting amongst the leading group, and yeah, Pack is going to need a miracle, another huge crash out like the likes of Flimsy could only provide, or someone like Aurel, for instance, who barrel rolled right at this spot right there after his side dipped into the water. But so far, it is absolutely no use, and it looks as though Pack will be knocked out due to that slow start. P15 it is for the man from Team Vitality. Nitek is still in. This is a great outing so far for the Russian player, and Tona winning the round with a 104.238. We haven't been focusing on who wins the round so much because there's been so much stuff happening in the final sector that we've been focusing towards the lower rungs of the rankings.
Yeah, Pack now with 48th, 27th, and 9th position. He ends up with a 15th place, so his second best result in that season. But I mean, I predicted him as a winner, but he is out. And Tona, yeah, you rightfully said it. He's still in, as well as Carl Jr. We haven't seen too much from him so far, as well as Wizzy. I haven't seen Wizzy at all so far. Not really a thought was going into him by casting this match, and that is a very, very, very good sign. You know, this player is still up for grabs. You can still sign him at Orcs. And Wizzy playing a fantastic round here, of course, is very, very familiar with that map. He played Surf, the original version of this map, at the World Championship of 2023 alongside his teammate Stufts. So Wizzy is able to clear this map nicely. But who is certainly not having a good round here is Neon. He has made a mistake. He's 4.5 seconds behind, and the players will be safing it. They will go extra wide. They will take the round a bit safer, especially the ending. And there you go. Top 13 is locked up, and Yosh also still in. Player that I haven't seen too much from either in the top or bottom field. So good to see that. But also Tona, I mean, he was the community manager of Trackmania.
Content manager, might I add.
Yeah, content, and I think community, I think it was Phoebe at this time. But he was working for Ubisoft Nadeo, and you can see he's a beast of a player as well.
But yeah, even before he had his stint as a part of the Nadeo staff, he comes from a United background. I think he was a pretty good coast player, if I am not mistaken, among the other environments of United. And yeah, it's of course superb to be able to see Tona perform. And to put a period on what happened with Neon, well, Nitek had a bit of a slow start, just like Bemi had, but then Neon full stop picked in the glider part and was forced to respawn, thus prompting the Polish young player to be knocked out. And another man who's on the verge of being knocked out and being caught out by that same glider part is Elkon, the man from Team Nemesis, the flag bearer for Czechia, currently trying to fight for survival, but he can maybe take advantage of a bit of a slowdown from Nitek here on the plastic. He's already made the junction. They're almost going to go side by side towards the glider. Bimmy just a bit further up ahead in 11th position, currently following along with Elkon. Nitek with a bit of a wider setup as he tries to make a beeline for it, but you can see his right side dipping into the water, and Nitek will get knocked out in P13. Elkon survives another round. Masa wins it with a 104.152. And you were briefly talking about putting a period on Stuft and Wizzy. It's a bit like a reunion almost of these two. These two, of course, playing under the banner of Team Wild in the World Championship, which included the ancestor of this map, Surf, where they finished in the top 6 on their very first competition under the Wild banner. And yeah, you make a good point about Wizzy. He is definitely one of the sharper end of the field, one of the sharper players in the British and Irish Trackmania scene, and one who definitely deserves a home and a banner to compete under.
Yeah, but also the likes of someone like Nitek, you know, now another P13 finish. He got P37, P17, and 59th, and he has been improving so much. I think he just picked up playing competitions last year, but now he has a strong competitor from his region as well, the likes of Bimi. It's his first appearance in the Elite Cup, and he's running very, very deep into it. P12 guaranteed for him. I mean, a top 7 would be just a complete dream scenario for Bimi, and he could make it happen. I mean, he could even run deeper than that, but let's see how the rounds are shaping here as Massa gets a very, very good speed outcome from that reactor boost and moves up into 10th position. Tona, 12th position right now, needs to fight for life. Massa with a different line there as well, concedes all speed, but they need to go inside here anyway. But it's a very close round that is happening. Rosal dropping down into that battle for last position. Tona still in there, half a second between first and last position. Yosh leading the way into the last part of the map. Tona struggling a bit to find a good drift entry, but it's still not out of this round just yet. But I think this will be it, since he doesn't have a lot of speed to work with, but he pushes the end. 1,000 of a second and of Bimi. What was that ending from Tona? Are you kidding me?
He managed to get the left side so close to the water that he basically just rocketed out of the final corner and pips Bimi to the line by a single millisecond. That is one of the saves of all time that Tona has just performed there. One of the saves of the season, at the very least. That is... Yeah, I'm joining you on that. Wow, that is insane stuff. What is insane as well is seeing Rosal potentially getting knocked out, but Josh has completely messed up the entry into the loop. I think you saw that from camera 1. He went way far out. Why? I think he was like a day and a half late when it came to get the car into the corner on the plastic. So Rosal breathed a sigh of relief after maybe some sweat beads coming up onto his forehead. He can wipe them off mid-ride. That might be a little bit difficult, but yeah, I think he can somewhat rest easy knowing that he has around a 2.5 to 3 second buffer thereabouts to play with as he's about to make his way to the top 10.
But Geek, that happened to me so often as well on this map, that the car is just getting pushed outside so much, and then you just... You don't want to really readjust or over-adjust, and I think that's what happened to Joshi as well. It's like, this is very hard to play, and it's so hard to hold that gear. You want to be very careful. And well, Rosal can call himself a bit lucky, but that's what you also need of. We've seen also the replay from Otag, of course, having that double bounce on USA and still was able to survive by a couple of hundreds, but it could have gone way worse for him. And eventually he ended up with a top 3 finish. So that's just how it goes. But who runs very, very deep here is still the one and only Tona, sniping by 1,000 of a second, and he's so close of getting that top 7 placement. But look who he's playing against. Carl Jr., Massa, Bren, Gwen, Tona, Stufts, Elcon, Wizzy, Binks, and Rosal. Tona is playing against those players, and because I mentioned Tona as well, is that he plays against himself as well, because it's a high-pressure situation. He has to go out of his comfort zone. He has to perform, he has to deliver, he has to drive PBs in those rounds. And look at that, who's in the lead right now? It's Tona. Tona is setting the pace here.
Yeah, Tona currently the pace setter, but I was following a little bit behind because Stutz had a very slow start. He finds himself 6/10 down compared to the leader, and currently the last man in the safe zone is Rosal at the tail end of the leading group, and that position is going to be shifting about with Elcon also joining him. Stutz trying to make the junction as we go towards the final glider section. Are there going to be any hard breaks? Elcon slowing down a little bit, trying to go for a bit of a shallow entry. Stutz still sitting in 9th. It looks as though Bobyashi roll. A huge stop pick from Bren on the second to last checkpoint. And the runner-up from last week is out in 10th. Stufts lives to see another round, and the Dutchman will be secured as the flag bearer for the Netherlands in the ENC rankings. He has been secured like that for a few rounds already, but such an unfortunate touch of the gate of the penultimate checkpoint for Bren.
Oh no, you hate to see that. Bran would have been safe in the next round and Stufts would be eliminated. Let's see how deep Stufts run in this tournament as he finds himself on 8th position in this round. I thought Tona crashed because he was tied in the checkpoints, but he's still in there. He's still in that one. And now, Geek, the next 2 rounds are so important here because there is a huge point jump from P8 to P7. 8th gets Elcon. I think that is not a good line, Elcon. Oh no, that is not a lot of speed to work with, so he falls behind. But 8th place gets 100 points and 7th goes home with 200. So you want to double your points at any just at any cost here, but one has to go out round after round as Wolfside and Elcon are battling it out here for that last spot in this round right now, as Tona gets a very good line here again, but there's a huge crash from Stufz and he has water tires. He's out. He is eliminated. Stufz down to P number 8. P number 9.
Yeah,
8. He's not in the top 8.
That was a close call for both Elcon and Wosile as well. I think there are Nemesis and GGeek fans breathe a collective sigh of relief after what just happened there. But yeah, Stufz, I think, went a little bit too far inside, didn't get the proper setup, and so full stomped into the gate right before the penultimate corner. That is such a shame to see him actually get knocked out like this. But we are now in another critical round. As you pointed out, the round from 9th to 8th is already critical in and of itself. But now, who makes it into the top 7 will essentially double their points payout by the end of the day, as we're going to go through to round number 34.
Yeah, let's go into round number 34. Now, I've not seen too much from Gwen so far either, which is another good sign. But Carl Jr., the Falcons player, the GOAT of Trackmania, is still in there as well, but right now he's quarter of a second behind here. It's so important to survive that round. 200 points is a lot to play for here, and Tona is still in. I cannot believe it. Like, he plays so good on this map, and it's just amazing to see him. He could get to huge points, but Gwen, just when I say that we haven't seen too much from him, Gwen with a mistake, and that is gutting to see in a round like this where the point jump is literally just double the points from position to position. Gwen looks to be eliminated here unless a mistake happens in the end here, but it doesn't look to be like that. The players have the information of the checkpoint. They can save it. Wolfside also went outside of that rock part, and every player does survive it. And we have our top 7 here. Gwen is out. Carl Jr. on P7 though, and Tona still in. I cannot stress it enough. It's so impressive to see that. Or yeah, is it just me?
Tona, no, you're totally right. I'm just a little bit, maybe a bit more subdued about it for some reason. But yeah, Tona making a solid performance and a solid outing here on Brazil. 35, 5th round out of 40, and whilst we did see Gwen go out, another man who's going to be very happy about today's performance is Banks, his teammate, who, remember, got knocked out in P55 last time out. You saw that in the recap a little bit earlier on here in the show. Right now, he's looking to try and lock himself into the top 6 and grab another 100 points to try and restore a little bit of confidence and try to be a little bit more of an even footing against Wosile. We're currently following along with the man from GGeek, who's right in the middle of the group, and towards the tail end, we see Massa, Carl Jr. It's still very tightly knit so far as we go into the first glider, and Tona still emerges in the lead ahead of Wosile by a 1/10 of a second. Supreme performance right now from the Frenchman, and Wizzy will be relegated to the back of the field by 2/10, but he's still very much in the hunt, trying to go for another round, trying to survive for the top 6 as we go on to the last gliders. Here we go then. Unlimited hydroplane mode engaged. Tona sets himself up wide, goes for the beeline through the chicane, which works beautifully for him. Wizzy trying to go for the move, trying to show himself, trying to intimidate some of the players. It does not work at all. Wizzy will get knocked out in 7th position. Still a great performance from the wheelman from Team GB. 6 players locked in, and one of those still in there after all those rounds. Tona, we can't help but focus on him because it's such a crazy performance from him.
It is. So Wizzy with another top 7 finish. He also got 1 on China. Then he got 41st on map 2 and 54th. So 7 and 7, that is definitely not too bad. But let's talk about Tona. His results are only 1. He only got into the Elite Cup division once, and that was on the 3rd map, the map from last week on USA, and he got 26 there. But now he's on P6, already guaranteed, already 300 points locked in, and right now he doesn't stop. He has one of the best starts from the field, and Wosile, the winner from last week, is now behind by 0.3 of a second, and also Massa still in there. Very good line in that corner, but Wosile needs to allow a mistake. It doesn't get the best of entries, has to travel a lot of distance, so loses a bit of time here. I'm just speaking a couple of hundreds, but he certainly doesn't catch up. But Binks and also Massa not with good speed, so Wosile coming back. Can Wosile intimidate his opponent opponent with good lines. He's risking a lot. Binks versus Wolsel in the ending here. Who is willing to risk more? Who is going to make a mistake? Binks with a good line. Wolsel with a more instant approach. Will it be enough to the line? And it is not. 300ths of a second, and Wolsel is out, but it's only 0.2 between the players. Top 5, though, is locked in. And also Carl Jr. with a very good performance today as he is getting his best position in. Maybe very soon. He got top 4 on map number 2, but he can definitely still run deeper than that since he's still in.
Yeah, he can definitely make a much deeper run, and am I allowed to say that? Am I allowed to say maybe, just maybe, this is the time where we see the 7-time world champion grab the first Elite Cup win of the season? I'm pretty sure just by saying that I might have jinxed it in somehow, but we're going to see how that goes here on round number 37 out of 40. Right now, everybody's still within 1/10.5 of each other at the moment as we go into the glider section. Going through the chicane, it's Binks and Tona, 1 and 2, Karl, Massa, and Elkon currently in that order as we go into checkpoint number 11. The good setup from Elkon will allow him to move up into the top 4. Massa trailing by just a few hundredths of a second, though. It's still all to play for survival. Karl trying to go for the lead against Binks from AG Global. Massa also making it a tightly knit group. Still less than a 10th between first and last as we go onto the glider. Who gets the best setup? Who gets the best lines? Who tries to carry as much speed as they can? Carl Jr. towards the bottom, trying to survive. Elkon as well. Towards the final corner we go. Elkon gets knocked out with his best finish of the season to date. P5 for the man for Team Nemesis. And Carl Jr. has for sure equaled his best result of top 4, and Tona's still in with a shot at a potential podium spot.
Yeah, Elkon got 21st, 11th, and 57th, and now getting a top 5 finish. But Tona, Binks, Carl Jr., and Massa, Carl Jr., Binks, yeah, I would have signed that, but Tona still in top 4. But right now, doesn't get a good start here. So Tona is behind, but he can be more than happy with that performance so far. But of course, if you run that deep, you always want more. And look at that speed here from Tona in this section, catching up to Massa, who has been losing some speed there, but also Tona not with the best of transitions. So Massa coming back, but we're still not halfway through this map as we now approach the first glider sector. Tona with a good approach here, coming back and claims the 3rd position for now. But now we come into the tech sector, a sector where Massa could really shine on, but also Tona comes from a competitive background, of course, played a lot of United environments, but also was very good on stadium competitions as well. But Massa is not slowing down here. As you can see, it's neck and neck between them. Thousands upon thousands is just between them. Tona going wide again, having a bit more speed, maybe a better approach here, but Massa is moving away, and Tona will get eliminated unless he gets a better ending than Massa, but it will not be enough. Binks almost with a mistake. Tona, P4 for him. What a stellar performance, but it could have been so much more. He just didn't get a good start, but like as Feed also says in chat, respect Tona. What an absolute stellar performance, really.
Honestly, golf claps all around for Tona for that top 4 placing. Absolutely bewildering stuff that we've seen, and absolute massive respect for him as we now go on to the top 3 round. And yeah, I was fearing a little bit for Binks towards the end because we saw Binks at the exit of the final corner. He kind of did a barrel roll, if you know the saying, and almost find himself flying off. But right now he's looking very good in this top 3 fight in the penultimate round on Brazil.
Yeah, let's go into that one and see who is gonna get eliminated, as we have Carl Jr. not with the best of starts here, and he right now finds himself a bit further behind, but it's only 700ths of a second here, Geek, as Massa is still claiming that lead, but it's so close. It is so close. Who will move into the final? Massa almost touching everything there, but he was able to survive in that round. Carl with a great nose slide there, catching up to Binks. This will all come down to the last identity of Massa. Binks and Carl Jr. are facing it against each other. Massa is further ahead. Binks with good speed. Carl Jr. coming back. Who's gonna get eliminated? It will be Binks, I think. It is Binks who's out. It's Massa versus Carl Jr. in that grand final here. And who's gonna win the Elite Cup on Brazil? We're gonna find out. There's one more round to play for. It's between Germany and Canada.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Binks and AG Global, the duck has not been broken when it comes to Elite Cup wins. It will have to wait until next week in Greece. Here we go then for the 40th and final round. Carl Jr. versus Massa. Already a great entry into the reactor after the start from the man from Team Falcons. Currently following along with him through the loop. 2:15 in the middle of the loop. Where is Massa at? Massa is right on his tail and gets a good double bounce and actually moves into the lead, but gets a clip on the entry into checkpoint number 5. And it feels as though just like that, in the snap of a finger, the round just kind of got amputated of its major battle there. 1.5 seconds of a deficit. That is an intergalactic distance at this point that is beyond comprehension of the human mind as we go on to the last sector. After a couple of missed starts and an early exit on the USA as he switches from car to unlimited hydroplane in the final corners. The man himself, the myth, the legend, the Lewis Hamilton of Trackmania is back to his winning ways. Carl Jr. takes the win on Brazil.
Carl Jr. did it here, but also Massa with an absolute stellar performance here. 400 points, and now he has 700 locked in as well. But of course, this was a bit lucky there due to that transition there that Massa fell victim to. He slowed down quite significantly there, and I think we're gonna talk about that in the next stream as well. Those things can happen, of course, in Trackmania, but I haven't seen this slowdown happening too much beforehand. But also Massa had the upper hand after the water bounce. It looked very, very much controlled, and he had more speed than Carl Jr.
Yeah, indeed, he had more speed than Carl Jr. And you can see my expression there for the second time in 2 weeks getting frozen right as we cut back to camera. So I'm going to try to get something set up. Just give me a little second. You want to get to see my face, but you'll get to see when I talk at the very least. Let me quickly... come on, let me in! Okay, sorry about that. There we go. Now you can see my waveform, and I'm just going to go... boink. There we go. You can see how I talk now, and we're going to be talking a lot about... Yeah, that was a bit of an unfortunate slowdown from Massa. Sorry, I was trying to figure out my issue whilst you were going off on the tangent there, but I think we're going to be seeing some appreciable gains. Well, for Carl Jr., first 1,000 pointer down in the books, so that is going to be doing him a great service to his Elite Cup standings, and we're going to take a little bit of a gander very soon once all of the standings are updated, of course.
They are updated.
Well, yeah, they are updated. Sorry, I thought we had a little bit of delay in updates last, just like last time out. But we're going to be taking a look at not this, but first of all the EWC standings, because that's where the biggest jump is going to be happening. There you go, Carl Jr. moving up to second. Massa also with appreciable gains, moving up to third. Binks in fourth has retaken the mantle of flag bearer for France in the ENC standings, as you'll see later on. Wilson in P5. Granati in P6, and then Bren and Nico in 7th and 8th, and Massa also taking over the spot from Granati as the highest blessed German player.
He does, and I mean, also look at that as well. We see Nico slowly but surely. I mean, he did not, I'm not sure if he didn't play today. Maybe he just didn't qualify, as well as Serra.
Yeah, could have not qualified because, he was one of those players that is in the Insalon as well, so there might be some...
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
But also Stuff's jumping up to P24 here. But Tona most recently jumping up to P15 here with one very good performance. I think he can hold on to that. And then Scrappy, P13 as well, not looking too bad for him. But of course, missed out on a huge opportunity of only getting 31st position on there, as well as Epos dropping down the line as well with only getting 8 points in this round. Bren, of course, got eliminated on 10th position as well. But I mean, Granadi's quite significantly dropping a lot of positions there. Moda and Carl Jr. first and second. Very good for them. Wizzy also with a very strong showing again, but there's a lot of positions that have just been swapped around, and I think that is really something that we can just consider next week as well. 33rd for Letsta, then we have Nuprem on 35th. I think Grazi was not in Division 1 today, maybe he also didn't play. Haven't seen too much from him, but hopefully he will be there next week. Then Spam down to 43rd position, so him qualifying to the Esport Nations Cup will be quite hard due to Stuft's performance. Molle, 44th, we have seen him during the ranking. Tween, 46, Tialic, J-Swag, Birdie, Bimi also with a great showing, his first Elite Cup appearance, and he gets 84 points out of it, and so on and so forth. All right, that was a very eventful evening, or morning, or afternoon, wherever you are. And here's also, again, the ENC standings.
I was going to go on a little bit about the ENC standings. Carl Jr., yeah, Canada moving up to second place. Germany still sitting put in third, and France actually bumping down 2 places to fourth, and also the UK, United Kingdom, dropping down to fifth. And we see Belgium staying put, Elcon making Czechia move up 2 spots from 9th up to 7th, Pussy Topaco down to 8th, and we see Stuft in 9th, Nitek nth for Netherlands and Russia respectively, Roadtaker down 11th for Poland, and Afi. That is probably the biggest move down in terms of nations. Switzerland dropping down 4 spots from 8th to 12th, Razi staying put in 13th, 14th place for Charles, and the USA has moved up into 15th spot with a great performance from Clinzy, all things considered, who also backs up some pretty solid performances earlier on in the season. And Slovenia is the lastly placed nations provisionally, with Jan with 2 ends this time on 126 points. As again, my camera deciding to kick the bucket is always just that's a USB moment, but that's something I'll get to suss out later on. And yeah, 4 down in the early part of the season, 1 to go. We're going to be heading on to Greece next time, and from the looks of it, it's a bit more of a standard track. We'll get that a bit more in depth, of course, when we get there. But it might be looking for a bit more of a closer race than we've seen early on in the season. And maybe Brazil, maybe not as many big mistakes leading to big gaps.
But even on this map today, we had a lot of close rounds. Of course, the transitions already were quite bumpy. You know, you can lose the gears somewhat, but I think the map turned out to be more consistent than I anticipated it to be. But of course, it's a bit gutting that the final was decided like that. But still, it's 700 points. It's still very good for Massa. I mean, he jumps up to 3rd position with that. So finally, a very, very good result for him, as he got 5th, and now 2nd place. Those are very good results to rely on. And well, here you go. I think that's it for today. Thank you very, very much, everybody, for joining in. I hope you enjoyed the cast, and guys, also make sure to be here in 1.5 hours time. I'll be live with Marius for the Trackmania Awards that will happen of 2025, where we just review and celebrate the year of 2025 in Trackmania. So we'll be here as well. And without further ado, I give the last word to Mr. GGeek. I'm
pretty sure you pretty much covered it all there. So make sure to stick around or tune back in 1.5 hours time at 8 p.m. CET or COTD+1 Trackmania Standard Time for the 2025 Trackmania Awards nominations reveal ceremony, and it's going to be a bit of a dandy day. I'm going to be probably lurking there, well, watching, and sometimes writing in the chat as well, so the more the merrier. The more the merrier when it comes to enjoying this sort of things. In the meantime, thank you very much for joining us for round 4 of the Trackmania Elite Cup for 2026. I've been Thomas Mengozi, or what remains of Thomas Mengozi, aka GGeek, alongside the one and only Lucker Sturbo, aka Kaludovic. Much love, be kind, stay safe. See you next week for Greece, and see you in a few hours for the Trackmania Awards. Godspeed, people.